Hi, this is Welcome to Self, and I'm your host, Dr. Hayley D. Quinn, the anti-burnout business coach. I'm a speaker, author, former clinical psychologist, and late identified ADHDer. Welcome to Self is a podcast for business owners like you who want success, but not at the cost of your well-being. This is about transforming self and transforming business. I'll be here to remind you that you're human first, and as well as being a business owner, you have different roles in your life that need your attention. And to manage those well, you need to take care of yourself in the best way possible. Here you'll learn about practices that'll help you navigate not just your business, but your non-work life as well. And you'll realise that you're not alone in the ways you struggle. You'll have your curiosity piqued on various topics as I chat with wonderful guests and bring you solo bite-sized episodes. I'm here for service-based business owners and entrepreneurs like you to help you increase your self-care and compassion, change your relationship with yourself and your business, and elevate your business to a new level so you can live the full and meaningful life you desire. This is a place of nourishment, growth, and helpful information. A place where you can learn ways to assist you and your business to thrive. We'll talk all things mindset, strategy, and well-being, and I'm so excited you're here. If you haven't already, go and hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. So let's get started. Hi, and welcome to another episode. Today I'll be speaking to my guest about career pivots, creativity, and how following your passions can lead to better well-being. Carla Anderson is a clinical psychologist with more than 25 years of experience supporting parents, infants, and the clinicians who care for them. Through her business, Carla Anderson Clinician Training, she offers two pathways of training that helps clinicians tend with confidence and bloom with purpose. One focused on skills in perinatal healthcare, and another focused on clinician self-care and nurturing with flowers. And you all know I'm all about self-care for clinicians. This is a really, really important area. So if you are a clinician or health professional, I think you're going to get a lot out of this episode. After years of carrying the emotional weight of her work and juggling the demands of running a business, Carla began studying floristry for her own self-care. She discovered how flowers, creativity, and mindful making could restore what empathy fatigue and burnout had worn down. This personal experience became the seed of the Clinician in Bloom, a space where clinicians slow down, reconnect, and replenish through floral practice, metaphor, and mindfulness. It's my pleasure to welcome Carla to the podcast, and I'm sure you're going to love this episode. Carla, welcome so much. It's so lovely to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much, Hayley. I'm so excited to be here to share things with your listeners.
So can you tell me, when was that moment when you knew you had to make different choices?
I think it was a few years ago, not long after COVID, and there was, with all the pivots and things that we had to do as business owners, not only from not that we were too badly affected here in Queensland by lockdowns, but with changes in rules and things like that. As psychologists, I found that our industry was really changing as well in terms of the workforce, and different legislation and things like that were changing. So there was a lot of pivoting and a lot of working way too many hours and just getting to a point where I just thought something's got to change here. I can't keep pushing at this level.
Yeah. It was a really tough time. I remember talking to a lot of people at the time, supervisees and other colleagues, when I was myself a psychologist around. That was a time when we were experiencing the same thing as our clients in terms of the COVID pandemic, but there wasn't really a lot of space for us to acknowledge our humanness. So I think it was a really tricky time. And like you say, there was lots of legislative changes, lots of changes with Medicare and things like that. But also generally for business owners that weren't psychologists, this was a really, really pivotal time in the world, right? And like you say, here in Queensland, we were really fortunate that we weren't impacted, but so many people who will be listening were perhaps in places like Melbourne or other places in the
Yeah.
world where this was really, really significant as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
just knew then it's like, I can't keep doing this. This is really impacting me too much. I'm going to do something different. And you went on to study floristry, which makes me giggle because I've had so many conversations over the years when I was working with other psychologists and supervising, where they would say, this work feels too heavy. I want to throw it all in and become a florist. And then I met you and you had done that. And I was like, oh, that's fantastic. So many people say it, but Carla actually went ahead and did it. That's so
Yeah.
brilliant. I love that.
There's always been that thing that I've always said, like my second career choice would be being a florist. And I've always just been known as the flower lady, and it's just been this real, like, it's just so beautiful.
So, what is it about floristry for you personally? And why do you think creativity, whether it's in floristry or in any kind of domain, why do you think
Mm.
creativity is so helpful in terms of our well-being?
Oh, there's so many parts to that. So personally, like, I've always loved nature and the
Mhm.
garden, and always been known as the plant lady or the flower lady. Like, when I always would give flowers to people, like, that was kind of my love language, was flowers. And I just, I'd never really thought about what it was about flowers that meant so much. And there was a Christmas workshop advertised, and I thought, I'm just going to go along to that. That sounds really fun. It was making some different Christmas arrangements, and from there, I was just like, you know what, this, when I was in that room being guided by the teacher, I wasn't thinking about anything else. Like, everything else was blocked out. And my hubby would always say to me out in the garden, he'd be like, when I look at you out in the garden, you're just out in the zone. And it was just like this light bulb where I just realized that this really was my mindfulness, that this was that place where I did stop. Yeah.
Yeah. So, this is your opportunity where you can get into flow, you can be really
Mm.
mindful. And what did you notice in terms of like physically? Did you notice a difference with how your nervous system was reacting?
Yeah, yeah. So just that real slowing down. And I've always been like one of those people that struggles with like the traditional mindfulness and meditation and things like that. It's like, I'm such a doer and I'm always on the go. And so this kind of combined that for me. Like, I'm still doing and I was still creating, but I was still very mindful and in the zone, and not really, didn't have all that noise going on about whether it was running the business or other things that were happening. And it's just so beautiful and sensory. I think that's the other part of it too. Like, when you think about flowers, it's to look at, they're just so beautiful, and to touch and to smell, and all of the senses are engaged when you work with flowers. So it just really, I don't know, it was something that I always knew, but it just was this real light bulb moment. I went, you know what, this is my thing, and I'm going to stop trying to fit into the mold of, what I think I should be doing, and go really focus on this as my own mindfulness.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you make a really important point, particularly for a lot of neurodivergent people, particularly ADHD.
Yeah.
That traditional mindfulness meditation can feel like a real barrier. Like, I'm not going to be able to
Yeah.
sit and do that. And I think we
Mm.
need to acknowledge there's lots of ways that we can be in a mindful moment, or we can be meditating. And that can be out walking on the beach, it can be creating with flowers, it can be
Yeah.
drawing, it can be doing all sorts of stuff. So I love that you talked about that, and people
Mm.
listening, really try to think about what are the ways that I can connect with the present moment. It doesn't
Mm.
have to be sat down, eyes closed, legs crossed
Mm.
kind of stuff. Like, I can't
Yeah.
do that. That's
Yeah.
very rare that
Yeah.
I will do that.
Mm.
So I love that you mentioned that. And I love that you also mentioned that you got to this place of, well, firstly, that you thought you wanted to do flowers. And then when you tried it, it is a fit for you. And that's beautiful, because sometimes we think we might want to do something and there might need to be some trial and error, because
Mm.
perhaps when we try it, it's like, oh, actually, the fantasy of that was better. The reality isn't really for me. So I love
Yeah.
that you found that, when you've thought that that was your place.
Yeah.
And also that piece around letting go of, this is how I should be.
Yes.
This is particularly as somebody who works as a psychologist or health professional, because there are these rigid rules around that, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what was the biggest challenge you had in terms of mindset when making the change?
For me, it had to be something that was going to be locked in. So from those Christmas workshops, I actually then enrolled in the full certificate to become a florist. And people who know me are like, of course you did. That's what you do. But I think for me, and again, like I think I've always similar to the mindfulness, what works for me. I'd always been really critical of that of myself to go, well, why should I need to lock something in to actually do it?
Mm.
But I think it was the real mindset shift of accepting that I know this about myself. And I know if I haven't got a class locked in, I'm not going to do it. Other things are going to get in the way. And so it meant that for 18 months, every Monday, I had to do a massive reshuffle of my clinical work and my business responsibilities. But every Monday, I went to class for, like 9 till 3, and studied floristry. And that really, really worked for me.
I love that, going back to being a student with that beginner's mind
Mm-hmm.
as well, but
Yes.
also that piece around knowing yourself. I mean, the premise of my book, From Self-Neglect to Self-Compassion,
Really
really is about
understanding
getting
who
to
you
know
are and
ourselves.
what.
What works for you is so important, isn't it? We can't
Yeah.
just look at what other people are doing and think that's going to work for us. So I love that you knew, if I don't lock this in, I'm not going to do it. I've
Yeah.
booked for myself a pottery class. I've done handcrafting pottery before, but
Yep.
I've booked in to do like wheel pottery. And part of me is just like, what are you doing, Hayley? There's some anxiety around that. But I'm also, well, I'm booked in. It's a 4-week course. I've got to turn up. I'm going with a friend. So I've made sure I've put things in place that are going to allow me to do that as well. I don't think I want to make a business of it or anything. Just go and have a bit of fun.
I think that was actually the thing. Like I had decided I want to do this and just go and do it for fun. So I think it was another mindset shift for me as well. Was it's obviously then become part of my business, but that was never my intention at the beginning. So I think that was another really important mindset part for me. Was I'm doing this just for me, and what comes of it comes of it. Yeah.
I love that. I work with a lot of very high achieving women,
Mm,
and and myself through my life, we can get caught in that trap, can't we? That what
yeah.
I'm doing has to be for purpose. It has to be
Yeah.
productive. It has to be for me to sell it or for me to pass it on to somebody else. Or it can't
Hmm.
just be for the sheer joy and pleasure and being with
Hmm.
myself in this moment. And we absolutely can do that. And things like that are so important to our well-being, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah. And it was really important to me. And that took a lot to go, this is a big commitment. This was a 18-month course and the costs involved in it as well. And I think that was that again, that real shift where I was like, no, I have to make some big changes here because I can't continue
Yeah.
working the way that I was working.
Yeah. So it
Yeah.
sounds like those changes were not just about your professional life in
Mm,
terms of, I need to find something else to do. And for you,
mhm,
you've chosen to keep both pathways.
mm,
Um, but also in your personal life of actually it's okay for me to just give to myself. It's okay
yeah.
for me to just take time for me. And again, I think particularly as women, we can really struggle with that.
Yeah. Yeah. That again, it's that it needs to be a reason. And even as psychologists, well, any professional, I think, is, any kind of training that we do, it has to be because it's our professional development or it's,
Yeah.
um, informing us in some way with our work. Whereas this was so outside of the box of what I would normally do training wise.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of relearning too, because it's a very different learning style as well to what we're used to with psychology and uni. And so that was a big shift too.
Yeah. And then
Mm.
you've brought together the clinicians in bloom. You've kind of pulled these threads of this is the psychology and the mindfulness and the nervous system regulation, and here's the floristry, and you've created this program. What sort of made you do that? What inspired you to do that?
It's a fascinating story that we had the owner of the floristry school I'd actually been connected with. I think it must have been 20 years earlier when I was working in domestic violence, and we were doing workplace training and assessment certificate together. And so I was coming from the angle of domestic violence and she was coming from the angle of floristry. And I just remember she was so, able to talk about all of that lost craft, that real historical floristry part, and be able to talk about meanings and not just this is how you put together a bouquet. And so then we fast forward 20 years. I had no idea that the school that I enrolled in was her school. And
Oh, really?
and so that was just this massive circle moment for me that kind of cemented, this just really cemented for me that I'm in the right place right now, but also just learning what she would share about the history of flowers and the meanings of flowers and the language of flowers and things like that. And my mind just started to go down that rabbit hole of this is so relevant to the work that we do. And I just started to think how useful that would be for clients, but then starting that more so thinking about for healthcare professionals as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's heavy work that you do, and I used to do. And I think it's so lovely. I started doing self-care for therapists work probably about 5, 6 years ago, and it's been so
Mhm.
lovely to watch more and more people kind of move into that space and provide services and spaces where health professionals can go and take care of themselves. So
Yes.
for you, the work you do is just with health professionals, or do you extend this work to anybody and everybody that wants to come and use flowers as a way of
Well,
being with themselves and being creative?
yeah. At the moment, I'm focusing on my clinician in bloom, which is for any healthcare professional, and it's an online program. However, what I also do run, not as regularly, but depending on just demand and things like that, is I was running my floral um, group, so flowers and mindfulness, and
Oh,
that was for women, and that was for women at any stage of life
yeah,
because I've worked in the perinatal space for nearly my whole career, and found that there are these big gaps for women with maybe primary school age children or high school age or leaving home. And so that's the other part that I do in person workshops for women who are just wanting to come and do something for them.
yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic. Because it was so good at kind of taking care of others' needs, aren't we? I talk again
Mhm.
about this in the book. We're so socialized from such a young age to think of others first and
Yeah.
take care of the needs of everybody else, and that can lead to self-neglect and
Mm.
we have increased rates of burnout, particularly
Yeah.
among women, as we know. So I think I love that there's more and more people that are kind of offering spaces for this sort of stuff to happen. What advice would you give to other people who are perhaps thinking of changing careers, whether that is a complete change, leaving behind what they
Mm.
were doing and moving into something completely new, or adding a stream to their business or their work?
I think for me, because I really love my clinical work that I do, I just was feeling really burnt out um, by the business, but and also that empathy fatigue as well with the heaviness of the work that I do clinically. And I think you can get to this point where it feels like, and I get to this point very often where it's like, I can't do this anymore.
Mm,
I need to go and do something different. And I guess I'm just slowly learning that maybe I just need to try, and it's a lot easier said than done, make some space for something that does feel completely different
mm,
so that it doesn't feel like, for 25 years, this has been my whole identity. That and being a mum has been my whole identity with, not often a lot of other things for me. And so I found that really useful is to just really try to make some space, even if it's really small, that I am doing something that's quite different to what
yeah,
I do in my everyday.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Do you have any concerns that you'll kind of start this floristry stream of the business, and then that will become about other people rather than about you and your engagement and your connection to self along the way.
Yes. Yes. And that was one of my big things when I started studying floristry, where I was like, no, I don't want to touch this to work, because I know, again, knowing myself, I know that I'll create this beautiful thing and then probably won't enjoy it for myself anymore. Um, Whereas I've probably been thinking about it a little bit different. Like, I just haven't put much pressure on it. I'm just, really trying to focus on going slowly with it, seeing what comes of it. But also, the other part I think of too is, since stopping studying the certificate, those Mondays have gone out the window for me again. So I don't do my floristry on Mondays anymore. And so, on the other hand, it kind of does mean that I'm engaging back with my flowers on a regular basis. So I do think that that will be helpful for me at the same time.
Yeah. So you keep that Monday now for you to engage in
Yes,
a joyful way, just for you and your flowers.
that's right. That's
Oh, that's
right.
beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think that really speaks to being intentional, doesn't it? Because we can go back to habits. So I've worked with people who work, say, in a corporate environment, and
Mm,
they're employed, and they're like, I don't want to be employed. I want to work for myself. I want to have some more autonomy. I want to have a bit more freedom. And ultimately, they find themselves years down the track doing exactly what they were doing
yep,
for somebody else without the benefits of sick pay, holiday pay, and all that sort
exactly.
of stuff.
Yes, yeah.
So I think, creating our businesses and our lives in a really intentional way is so important. So I love that you've protected that Monday space. It's not kind of got clients creeping back in there, or, whatever else other people are needing from you. I think that intentionality is really an important piece. So thanks for mentioning that as well.
And it is really hard. Like, there are days where, maybe it's not as protected as I would like it to be, and I know that that's not a possibility for everybody to do that. But I even if I am doing some admin work and things like that, I really try to focus on the day being a slow day and
Mm,
not an overbooked day, and spending time out in the garden with the flowers, even if I'm not getting to do any arranging and things like that, is really
mm.
important.
Yeah, fantastic. And
Yeah.
of course, we're not aiming for perfection. We're not aiming for every day
No.
to be exactly as we set it up to be. We
Yep.
have to acknowledge we're human first, and we do have other things. And not everybody does, like you say, have the privilege of the autonomy and freedom that perhaps you and I have.
Yeah.
But even if you don't have that autonomy and freedom, it's like, look for the little spots of where you could be making some choices for yourself. And I always come back to, even if it's just taking 10 breaths
Hmm.
and tuning in to yourself and what you need. And maybe that's a glass of water or a cup of tea, or maybe you need to go move your body a little bit.
Yeah.
And if you do have more space for it, really thinking, what do I want these particular days to look like? How do I want to
That's
kind of
right.
curate my life in a way that is going to be really meaningful and intentional, and so I can
Mm.
thrive? Because at the end of the day, that's what we want, isn't it? We want to be thriving today and for our future selves as well. This season is all about focusing on future self. And
Yep.
when you were thinking about this, how much did you kind of fast forward for yourself to consider your future self in these decisions?
I think that was, again, because it was that real something had to change moment. It really was thinking about my future self and thinking about, you know, and do I continue doing what I'm doing in my work, or how do I make that more sustainable? And so many of the decisions that I made were thinking about that. And yeah, it's tricky because it is a lot of gear shifts often, but I just keep coming back to that. Why am I doing this? Like, what is
Mm,
my why?
yeah.
Yeah.
So reconnecting with your values on a regular
Hmm.
basis,
Yep.
thinking about future self. Because I think we can get caught up, and I certainly did this before I ended up in a really significant burnout, is
Mhm.
thinking about, like, present me. Well, I'll just get through. I've just got to get to the end of the day. I'll be okay if I can just get through to the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then day upon day upon day, week upon week, month upon month, you keep doing that. But
Yeah.
ultimately, you you end up in a future space where it's like, actually, I'm completely depleted. I'm burnt out. I had to walk away from the place where I had a room set up. I had beautiful colleagues. It became a really
Yeah.
distressing time of my life, which is why I'm
Yeah.
so passionate about helping people think about future self now so that you can set things up. So I love that you held future Carla in mind. What's life going to look like for future Carla, and then created that space for that as well. And
Yeah.
are you just loving it?
Yes, and I just because I too made some pretty significant changes, like with my business, similar to what you were just saying, Hayley, that I had a big group practice and shut it down last year, and that wasn't necessarily an intentional decision at
Yeah.
that time, but it actually was the best decision
Mm.
that I made. So it is that duality of
Yeah.
it's been a significant change and it's been a lot to carry, but at the same time, it's really just keeps reminding me of my coming back to my why again. That now I get to work from home and I can just walk out into my flower garden and take that, even if it is just 5 minutes. And I've just got that constant reminder. I look out my window and it's, you know what, you need a break. You need to go out and walk out. Whereas I never used to do that. So
Nice.
I think
Yeah.
that sometimes when big things happen, it can be quite distressing and devastating
Yeah.
at the time, but yeah, it can also be really beautiful too.
Yeah. So, what has been the most pleasant surprise for you in this transition?
I think I've just really, really loved learning about flowers and learning about the history of flowers and their meanings. Like I think that that's been, I've always known that I've loved them, but never really thought much more about it. So it's being able to really dive into that space to learn about
Mm.
all those things, I just think is really, really beautiful. And learning how to grow them because I grow a lot of my own flowers as well. So
Oh,
it
cool.
has been this really lovely time because you can then see you get to in our work we don't often get a lot of feedback
Mm.
about our work, whereas when it comes to nature and flowers you get that feedback every time you're looking, that there's a new bloom or there's a new seed sprouting, and I just absolutely love that. That's been the really beautiful part.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm not the best with plants and keeping them alive. I've done pretty well since moving to the coast the last couple of years. But I love peace lilies because they talk to you, right? They
Yeah.
wilt and say, "I need some water," and then you give them water and they sparkle up, and it's fantastic.
Yes.
So they are my favorite. But that's more about I need them to tell me how to look after them because I'm not great. Again, ADHD. I completely forget that I've got plants that need watering. Do you have a
But that
favorite?
is that, oh, I was just going to say that is that beautiful part about flower. Like even when you're given flowers as well, is it's that they need their water changed and they need their stems cut. Like that, it's this visual reminder, like the peace lily, where it's like, oh, I need to look after that peace lily right now, and connecting that back in with what am I doing to look after myself?
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
reminding me because I've always struggled to hydrate enough. I've actually
Mhm.
been working with a naturopath lately, and I'm on instruction to drink lots of water, and I'm thrilled with myself because I'm getting through at least 2 liters of water a day, which I'm blowing my own mind to be honest. I don't quite know how I'm managing it, but I am, which is fantastic. But one of the things I used to do when I was, I guess, in relationship with my peace lily, I had quite a few of them around the house. So I would kind of chat to them and they would tell me they needed water by wilting, and I would then give them the water, but I'd also check in with myself. It's like, okay, peace lily needs water, do
Yes,
I need water as well? So it
that's
was this
it.
really beautiful kind of symbiotic relationship between me and my peace lilies, which might sound a little weird, but here we are.
That doesn't sound weird at all because that's exactly that exactly the same thing about when you have a bunch of flowers and just really looking at what do those flowers need today and what's that telling me that I might need.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. That's so
Yeah.
fantastic. So I had another question in my mind, and it's completely, oh no, it's come back. Do you have a favorite flower or plant yourself? And why is it?
Well, I actually you probably can't see it very well in the background. It's the white flower and it's a flannel flower. It's an Australian natives, and it looks like a little, if you look them up, they're just the most beautiful, dainty flowers, and they've got this really velvety texture. But what I actually really love about it is a lot of the meaning behind it as well. That, for a lot of the natives, it's about being able to thrive in harsh conditions. And it is a notoriously difficult flower to grow. And I tried every single way possible. Because it needs smoke and flame and things like that. So,
Oh, wow.
I'd be out in the backyard with my terracotta pot trying to burn these little seeds to get them going. Nothing would work. And it had gotten to a point where I was like, cannot grow this flannel flower. And because you couldn't often find it in a plant. And I actually found someone that was selling the plants, and that is from my garden. Like, they are just blooming beautifully. And that's a really long way of saying what's my favorite flower, but I think it's so much to do with the meaning about it, and that I could have just given up and went, I cannot get these to germinate. But instead I was like, you know what? I just need to tackle this differently. I need to adapt. And I found somebody who sold the plant rather than trying to germinate it from seed. And even that in itself has so much meaning in it, is that sometimes, we might not be able to germinate or start what it is we want, but we might just need to adapt the things that we're doing. And so every time I look at them, I'm like, it just brings joy, but also is that reminder of where I've adapted.
Yeah.
Mm.
I love that being willing to be with the discomfort of not being able to do something, thinking
Yeah.
about how you can do it differently. I mean, this is life, right? Thinking
Yeah.
about how you can do it differently, recognizing when you actually perhaps need help from somebody else,
Yes.
and being willing to reach out and ask for that help, or
Yeah.
even have conversations with people around, I don't actually know what help I need, but can you
Yeah.
help me figure out what help I need? So I think
Mm-hmm.
this just fits so beautifully. I mean, it
Yeah.
really is, this floristry really is a beautiful metaphor for life, isn't it?
Oh, it so is. And there's so many metaphors when you think about floristry and flowers and nature. Like, it can be really, really powerful in
Yeah.
terms of reinforcing that self-care and thinking about what it is that we need.
Oh, lovely. I'm so excited. I'm all about supporting women in business. I'm joining your Clinician in
Yeah.
Bloom, even though I'm not technically a clinician anymore,
That's
but
okay.
always at heart.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm really excited to learn more from you. And I think at the time of recording, we were just saying before we hit record, that at the time of recording, so it might have changed by the time the episode comes out in the next 2 or 3 weeks, you do have perhaps a couple of spots left for that. So we'll put a
Yeah.
link in the show notes. And if you do, you do. And if not, perhaps people can go on a wait list or contact you for next time you're going to run the program.
That would be amazing. Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. So I ask this question to everybody that comes on the podcast. It is one of my favorites. And it's also a question that I ask myself on a regular basis. If you could meet your 80-year-old self today, what do you think she would say to you?
Hmm. Trust your instincts. I think that that's probably one of my biggest kind of guiding principles that I go by, is trust your instincts and go with what feels right.
Yeah,
Mm.
fantastic. I love it. And
Mm.
I'm sure your 80-year-old self, if we're all fortunate enough to reach 80, I can imagine her pottering in the garden and
Yes,
growing various plants and flowers, and perhaps having some frustrations about the ones that won't quite do as
that's
they're
right.
told.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
That's fantastic. Where I'll put like I say, all the links in the show notes, but where's like the best place people can connect to you?
Probably by email or checking out my website. You can pop them in for
Yeah.
me as well. Otherwise, on Instagram and Facebook as well, you can follow along at Carla Anderson Clinician Training. Post lots of different things about flowers and other things on there as well. But yeah, whatever's kind of easiest for listeners to reach out. I'm always happy to connect. I love connecting with people who share the same passion. So that would be more than welcome.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on, Carla. I'm sure people are going to get a lot from this episode. There's been some beautiful wisdom throughout. I really appreciate you joining me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a privilege. Thank you.
And thank you for tuning in again. I hope you've enjoyed the episode, and we'll be back again next week. So, in the meantime, take care, go well, and go gently with yourselves. Bye. Thanks for sharing this time with me today. I hope it's been helpful and supportive. If there's been something in this episode that you have found helpful, I encourage you to share it with your business besties so they can benefit too. Shares, ratings, and reviews really help to increase awareness and reach of the podcast, meaning more people can benefit from the information. I really appreciate you taking the time. If you'd like to know about the ways we can work together, check out my website at drhayleydquinn.com. I'll pop the link in the show notes, and you can also join my mailing list from there and be kept up to date with all that is happening. I do need to say, because legal stuff, this podcast is solely for the purpose of education and entertainment. This podcast is not intended as a substitute for individual advice or advice of health professionals or other qualified professionals. Okay, now we've got that formal stuff out of the way. I love hearing from listeners, so don't be shy. Reach out and let me know your thoughts on the episode or what else you'd like to hear about. I wish you well in your relationship with yourself and your business, and may you go well and go gently. And remember, if you thrive, your business will too.